Owen, he has a speech to make.
Good evening and thank you for joining. I would ask that all devices be turned off or silenced. The meeting being held tonight is a public meeting being held under the Planning Act and is being live streamed to the Township YouTube page. Notice of collection of personal information collected as a result of the public meeting is collected under the authority of the Planning Act and will be used to assist in making a decision on this matter. Persons speaking at this meeting are requested to give their name and address for recording in the minutes. All names, addresses, opinions, and comments may be collected and may form part of the minutes, which will be available to the public. Additionally, interested members of the public can email the clerk or the Development Services Department if they wish to be notified regarding a particular application. Questions regarding this collection should be forwarded to the Development Services Department. Tonight's meeting is to consider public meeting reports. These reports do not contain a staff recommendation, and the recommendation is typically to approve with conditions, defer the application, or to deny. After the planner's presentation, committee members will be able to speak or ask questions of staff, followed by members of the public. Following the question and answer period, this committee then makes a recommendation of the applications to approve, defer, or deny the application. Following the committee's decision, notice will be circulated in accordance with the Planning Act. If a specified person or public body would otherwise have the ability to appeal the decision of the committee to the Ontario Land Tribunal, but the specified person or public body does not make an oral submission at the public meeting or make written submission to the Township of Stone Mills before the application is provisionally approved, the specified person or public body is not entitled to appeal this decision. So I will call this meeting to order at 5:02 p.m.
Just my turn now. Ask for the approval of the agenda. Moved by Marilyn, seconded by Bob. Any errors, omissions, any additions or deletions to the agenda? All those in favor? Carried. Adoption of the minutes. Have a mover and a seconder. Moved by Dieter, seconded by Bob. Any discussion, errors and omissions out of those minutes? I have one. It's not noted that Aaron was not present at that meeting. Yes, Dieter?
Yeah, just one spelling mistake there. On which one are we at here? The 8.1, I'll find it here. 8.16A. You got that?
Yep.
Can you change the word hat to that?
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, Aaron?
I was just also going to note that my absence was omitted from the minutes, same comment you had made, Bob. I would raise this as potentially a system glitch that may also be applicable to other reports on the civic portal for staff to review as well.
Received, thank you. Just to clarify, we've had this discussion internally earlier today, and we're looking into that from a civic web portal perspective. So we'll make sure that that's addressed through these minutes in future, as well as that we understand how to rectify that issue moving forward. So appreciate it.
Thank you, Jason. Okay, moving on to item 7. I guess all those in favor of the minutes? Sorry, approved. Moving on, minor variance application. You people want to join us at the table, please? Jason, you're on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And through you, I will provide a brief overview with respect to application A03-2024. It's a minor variance and permission application as it relates to the property known municipally as 417 Neville Point Road. It's towards the easternmost end of the road. And for those of you who made it to the site, you'll recognize it because there's been some trees cleared in the hopes that this goes as planned this evening to facilitate the new development. The application 417, as it relates to 417 Neville Point Road, pertains to an existing developed property that's got a single-story cottage or residence on the property, and the applicants are proposing to essentially demolish and rebuild a larger, more permanent year-round two-story dwelling as detailed on the sketch on the screen. In association with that permission to expand the existing single detached dwelling, the applicants are proposing to recognize the existing accessory structures from a zoning compliance standpoint that are on the property. And I just want to provide a bit of a background as to why and how we've gotten to this point, because some of you may, as committee members, may be asking, why weren't they built in the proper location to begin with respect to our zoning bylaw? And the way in which that happens is often the time applicants construct buildings that don't necessitate a building permit, so they're lesser than 15 square meters in size, and they construct those in the absence of a building permit, so there's no actual review done from a planning point of view because there's no permit obtained from our office, and there's generally an oversight with regard to the zoning bylaw. So even though there's an exemption related to the building code on the size, it doesn't exempt a property owner from complying with the required yard setbacks. So for that reason, these accessory structures were constructed relatively recently, and they don't comply with our setbacks. So through this application, we're proposing to recognize the deficiencies on yard setbacks and water setbacks as it relates to those two existing accessory structures. As you can tell on the sketch, and for those of you who made it to the property, it's I don't want to use the word postage stamp, it's a small lot on the water. This committee is familiar with those types of lots on this road and on that lake. And when we have redevelopment considerations of properties of similar size on the lake, it's very, very challenging to comply with all of the zoning requirements. So we are often in front of this committee with redevelopment plans. In short, the redeveloped cottage also is to encompass a septic system. Currently it's a holding tank, and you can see on the bottom left corner of the slide, which would be the southwest corner of the property, is where the conventional septic system would be located and the existing holding tank removed. The proposed new development is all greatly increased from a water setback from the existing, as compared to the existing. It's all defined on the plan. I'm not going to get into the numbers, but it's essentially maximized itself in ensuring that there's still a driveway from the road to provide access for parking on site, but increase the setback distance from the high water mark to the best of the ability that the applicants can achieve. The Conservation Authority, Quinte Conservation, has reviewed the file, have provided comments, and have no objections to the proposed redevelopment. The application was circulated to neighbors. I believe it was 6 neighboring property owners within 60-meter radius of the property, and we've received no comments to date as it relates to this redevelopment plan, neither in favor nor in denial. I recognize that both the applicants, your chair, as well as members of the public are here this evening, and there may be something further to add. However, in our assessment, the proposal to reconstruct the dwelling is consistent with the policies of Section 45(2) of the Planning Act for permission, and the 4 tests of a variance related to the accessory structures are satisfied. And I'm happy to answer any questions should the committee have any of those for staff.
Thank you, Jason. Committee members have any questions or concerns? I'm sure you do, Dieter.
I'm no problem with the minor variance, but maybe I'm going a little ahead there, but does the new building not require a whole bunch of minor variances too? I mean, it doesn't conform to practically anything either, so how is that going to fit into this?
Through you, through you, Mr. Chair, it's a great question, Member Eberhardt. The way that the staff report has reviewed the dwelling is through a permission application, because the existing cottage is already there in a deficient location from a lot of setback requirements as well, in terms of water, high water yards. And the application is to reflect that the existing non-conforming dwelling is to be demolished and reconstructed or enlarged through the section 45(2) of the Planning Act, as opposed to getting into all the variances from all different yards that we typically see for something like that on a vacant lot.
Okay, well, that answers my question. And just a comment, 50 years ago, I was involved in surveying that subdivision there for Mrs. Neville. And I know back in those days, there was I don't think anybody ever considered that these lots would be other than just cottage lots, and never intended to put full-time residences on there. However, that transition has changed over the years, and you're not the only one living there full-time now. It's a whole community, so I guess we have to deal with it, as you said, Jason. Okay.
Anyone else have any concerns, questions? I feel that with what goes on back there on these lakes, these small lots, what you people are proposing to do has to be very beneficial. You're to be commended. Anything is better than what's there. Yes, Bob?
The new septic system is the biggest improvement of that whole lot.
Oh, tremendous.
The building is there too, and that's great, but the septic is a lot better than what you were.
You weren't on the air, Bob.
That's okay. That's okay.
Okay, I need a motion to either approve or. What is it?
Should we double check and make sure no one from the public is here to speak to this file?
Okay. Is there anyone here from the public who wishes to speak to this? I guess not. Okay, it's been moved by Bob, it's been seconded by Dieter. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Have a good evening. Wish you the best.
You're going to have it all done by fall?
We're going to enjoy a summer out here,
Oh, okay.
and as the little cottage that it is, and then do it in the fall.
Oh, okay. Good luck. Pardon? Yeah. Okay.
Severance application, B42-2024. And there's the other one too. Do we want to do them together, or do you want to do them separately?
I know, I think we can do them together, is
Do them
my
together?
my feeling, yeah.
Together, Aaron?
I agree.
Everyone in agreement to do them together?
Yeah.
Okay, Jason, I understand there's a slideshow to go with this. Do you want to speak to it, or you want to do the slide?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll do a very brief intro and then turn it over to the consultants who have joined us virtually this evening. The files B42, 2024 and B43, 2024 pertain to 416D County Road 13 on the north shore of White Lake. These applications are for two severance applications to create two separately conveyable new lots for development and retain the existing development on the retained parcel. The only thing I'll add at this juncture is to ensure that committee is aware that this application, an element of this application, has proceeded to council already at a former meeting, because through this proposal, the applicant is proposing to close an unopened, unmaintained road allowance that bisects the property, and council heard that application and supported that, given the fact that we have no future use or vision for that road allowance. So I want to make sure that committee was aware of that in the sense that it's already happened as opposed to a condition. There is a condition in the draft recommendation for you this evening that makes reference to that, but it's not something that we would be going back to council on depending on the decision of committee this evening. With that, the applicant has a slideshow that will overview the proposal and get into detail, and I can answer any questions from a staff point of view that may not be best addressed by the applicant themselves.
Thank you very much, Jason. Through you, Mr. Chair. Good evening. My name is Gabby Amos, and I'm joined today by my colleague David Nanton. We're from Photon Planning and Design. I would like to thank you tonight for your valuable time to provide this brief overview of the applications for consent to sever to create 2 new rural residential properties for lands municipally known as 416D County Road 13. Next slide, please. So the property in question is located on the north side of White Lake, approximately 2 kilometers southwest of Aaronsville Hamlet. The site has a lot area of 16.59 hectares with 609 meters of frontage along the county road. The oversized parcel is currently developed with a single detached dwelling and a number of accessory structures, and the findings of the EIS demonstrate that there are woodlands and wetlands present on the site. One more slide down, please. So you'll see here, this is what we are proposing to do today, is to create 2 severed lots immediately west of the existing retained lands driveway. Severed lot 1 will be larger in size at 5.16 hectares and generally be rectangular in shape. This parcel is largely occupied by woodland and wetlands. Severed lot 2 will be approximately 1.52 hectares in size. And to reduce the number of private entrances from the county road, this lot is also requesting an easement to utilize the existing driveway on the retained lands through the use of an easement over the first 25 meters of this driveway. Next slide. So in evaluating this proposal, we found that it does meet the consent policies of the Planning Act through gentle intensification in the rural area by creating 2 new lots along a public county road and complying with the policies of the official plans and the zoning bylaw. The minor nature of the proposed development does not trigger applications for site plan of subdivision or site plan control. Moving to the township, the county official plan. The county official plan designates the lands as both rural area oriented along the county road and environmental protection area along White Lake. It's the county's direction that severances are to consult the policies of the local official plan, in this case, the Township of Stone Mills. So we'll move forward to this. So the site is designated a rural area in the Township of Stone Mills official plan. Policy 3 of section 9.2.3 requires that the site meet a minimum severed lot area requirement of 0.8 hectares and a retained lot to be a minimum of 10 hectares, and to ensure that there's frontage on a maintained municipal road. These conditions are met. Moving forward to the zoning bylaw, the site is zoned rural countryside, rural exception 19. The proposed severances do meet all provisions of the zoning bylaw, importantly, including the permitted use, lot area, and lot frontage. The rule exception 19 additionally states that despite section 59, frontage on a public street, development of the subject land is permitted. And then finally, on the last slide, I did provide a slight overview of the EIS that was conducted as part of this application. The study concluded that the severed lands could be appropriately accommodating a future development parcel of 0.2 hectares each without adversely impacting the natural core area. And as typical with EIS reports, the report came with a list of mitigation measures that the landowner has reviewed and agrees to adhere to during future development. At this time, it's understood that no development will be occurring on either of the severed lots. They are intended for future rural residential use. But in the event, this was all reviewed. So thank you very much for your time, Mr. Chair and panel members, and we'd be happy to answer any questions that you and staff may have.
Committee members have any questions? Yes, Marilyn.
I have a couple of questions. I was just wondering, all of those cottage lots that are not included in this, do they have legal access via that existing driveway?
Who's going to answer
Through
the
you,
question? Jason?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the applicant's going to address the question.
Through you, Mr. Chair, pardon me. Hard to see where everyone's pointing on Zoom. Yes, there is a legal agreement in place for those cottages to use the driveway, and that will continue to be the case.
Thank you. My second question, if I may, I noticed there was a hydro line that ran across one of the properties. Is there an easement for that hydro line? And I assume it's servicing those cottages down there.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Pardon me, I was just locating that line that you're referencing there. This has not been a point of discussion throughout our applications. I cannot speak to it with certainty if there is an easement in place.
Thank you. That would be something that I would really like an answer to. I'm not sure. Jason, can you give us some insight on that?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. In my experience, typically hydro lines that cross private property that do feed more than one property are not always subject to an easement. So it is common in the sense that you can have a line that bisects a property, assuming that it provides access to more than one, that's not subject to an easement. Alternatively, I have seen them where they are subject to easement, and that's really to the discretion of Hydro One. We've circulated through the circulation process of this application, Hydro One, for comment, as we do with all of our files, and they provided no concern or comment to that degree, Member Fenwick, on this proposal. From that regard, I don't have anything I can share in the sense that it has an easement over the applicant's parcel, but I don't envision any change to the existing line that services the cottages on White Lake that would feed over this property. An easement would, like I said, is not always the case when it comes to hydro.
And I had just a third question. I was just noting that in the presentation that just, maybe I'm nitpicking here, but severed lot 2 on this drawing that I'm looking at is 1.67 hectares, and I think that they had said it was 1.52, and there's a little discrepancy in the number as far as the road frontage was concerned. It doesn't make a big difference, I don't think, but it was just that I noted that. And the same way on severed lot 1, where there's a little bit of discrepancy as far as the road frontage. Again, not a big deal, but interesting.
Okay. Dear?
Yeah, just, I think I read the environmental impact study until, I don't know which page it was, but till the loggerhead shrike was not effective in that area, and then I gave up on, I think, 50 pages. That was well done. It was amazing the effort that the planners have gone to in this. However, in your planning justification letter, you indicated there's also supposed to be a survey, but I don't see that in your presentation. And in that vein, I'm quite disappointed in the Severn sketch, which was not done by a surveyor. Would have answered a lot of the questions we had about the right-of-way, about the hydro line, about access to the cottages. I think that all would have been properly shown on if a surveyor had prepared a proper sketch for that. Anyways, just my comments.
Yes, Jason?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I apologize I didn't mention this at the start, and Member Eberhardt's comment related to the EIS is what sparked my memory. I just want to draw your attention as members of the committee that condition 12 of B42 2024, as well as condition 12 of B43 2024, have a condition that speaks to the requirement for the applicant to enter into a development agreement on title to recognize the environmental impact statement or studies recommendations. And why I draw your attention to this is because typically when an applicant who is navigating an approvals process, of course they're familiar with the environmental impact study and the great lengths that went to understand how that affects future development. But if it's not registered on title, there's a potential that it's not passed down to future owners and subsequent owners. So we, as a municipality or as staff to you as committee, are recommending that that be incorporated within the notice of decision if it were approved, to ensure that that comprehensive report that Mr. Eberhard's making reference to is also identified and recognized on title.
Thank you, Jason. Anyone have any concerns, questions? Anybody from the public have any concerns or questions? Okay, people, need a motion to either approve, deny. Yes, Bob? Moved by Bob to approve. Do I have a seconder? Merrill, thank you. Any further discussion, concerns on both severances? Yes, Jason?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The only one additional point I'd like to make reference to for the committee's awareness is the difference in conditions between B42 versus B43 2024. You'll note that there's 13 conditions for B42, and there are 14 conditions for the subsequent file, which is B43 2024. The only difference is condition 6 in B43 2024, and that, as mentioned by the agent on the file, pertains to an easement over the retained parcel for access for a driveway. So I know we're considering these largely in harmony tonight as committee, but I wanted to make sure that you were aware and cognizant of the fact that there is a difference in the conditions, and that is the only difference in the conditions as proposed by staff.
Yes, Aaron?
Based on that, I feel like maybe the spirit behind our decision to hear the applications together was from an efficiency perspective, but perhaps the committee would consider making a motion for approval per application title for clarity in the minutes related to the conditions specific to each unique application.
So you're saying, Aaron, you would prefer to see the two severances be divided and treated individually?
Just in terms of our minutes, if possible, yes.
How does the committee feel?
You're saying, Aaron, that's just based on the fact that that smaller has to do with needs an easement across that right-of-way for access? Is that why you think it should be separated?
No, just in terms of clarity in the record, acknowledging that there are differences in the conditions between the applications. I'm supportive of moving forward based on the discussion, but just in terms of the recommendations, I would propose that we approve the recommendations as written for each application, is my suggestion.
So you mean like we approve one and then we approve the other?
Yeah,
Okay, I'm fine with
procedurally,
that,
just
sure.
going through both.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, if that's the decision of the committee, we'll just take a mover and seconder on both files and hear a vote on both files we don't need to really reorder the agenda or any of that sort. It's really, I think, that would satisfy Member O'Gara's questions if I'm understanding correctly.
To clarify, that is exactly what I'm proposing. Yes, thank you.
Yes, Bob?
I remove my motion.
Okay, so we're back to square one. Okay, we'll go with
Through you,
the-
Mr. Chair.
Pardon me?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Sorry, if I may I offer a clarification to one point that was brought up earlier regarding the survey?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It was noted that a survey should be prepared, and this has been finalized. We do have the survey. The survey then informed the concept plan that was prepared by the FOTAN office. In addition to that, it was also overlaid with the EIS findings. In general, the retained lands are quite encumbered, and so is severed lot 1. So there was some shifting that had to go on in order to make reasonable developable lots. And this concept plan does show the road allowance that was in previous conversation with council to be closed as well. It's just quite light on it because it was no longer a consideration. I hope that clarifies some of the questions around the survey.
Yeah, it's just that as a retired Ontario land surveyor, when you say survey, it has a specific connotation to me. That's all.
Okay, we're back to square one. Need an approval or denial for B42? We have a mover. Aaron, Bob? Any further discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Okay, on to 43. Need a mover and a seconder, please. We got lots of movers.
Go ahead.
Moved by Dieter, seconded by Bob. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Okay, they're both approved. Okay, that's the end of our severances. Anyone have anything to add to the committee? I do. I had sat in on a meeting last week over the peer review costs with our clerk, our deputy clerk, the two Wimp brothers. Jason, do you want to, you sat in on it? You want to, I was just an onlooker.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the question is, can I provide a summary of the meeting? This discussion stems from our discussion at the previous Committee of Adjustment meeting in which it was raised that committee ought to be aware that satisfying conditions, including the usage of a peer reviewer for township staff on a hydrogeological assessment front, is compensated and paid for fully by the applicant. There was some question as to whether or not that was appropriate, whether that was standard process, or whether that was a new change that the municipality has undertaken since the change in legislation through Bill 109 to the Conservation Authorities Act. So we had a really positive educational discussion, in my opinion, with staff, our chair, our reeve, and members of the community related to the usage of peer reviewers. And in 2023, I believe it was, council had made a decision to rely upon the use of Malroz Engineering in the capacity of our peer reviewer for the township, given the absence of support provided from Quinte Conservation Authority's peer reviewer, Mark Boone. At that time, council's resolution to staff in the usage of that peer reviewer, it was also clarified and confirmed that that those fees would not be covered by the general ratepayer. They would be covered by the developer, the proponent of the development, which is generally consistent, I would add, in the sense that the way in which development charges roll out across a municipality, in the sense that development pays for development. If you're proposing to build something, sever some lots on the north shore of White Lake, for example, all the costs associated with those, the surveys, the wells, the hydrogeological studies, the parkland, levies, any of that sort is borne by those applicants and not our general tax base. That was, I think in short, the monetary component of the discussion in last week's meeting, or 2 weeks ago, whenever that was. And there was some positive outcomes that resulted from the discussion around better clarity to proponents or applicants when they're about to endeavor on an approvals process to what to expect. So we've made some tweaks internally to our payment disbursement breakdowns, for example, and I looked to Mr. Wood sitting beside me as being the main principal contact for ratepayers. So that's part of the general discussion up front. And while we're on the topic, I'll draw committee's awareness to, oh, you can't see my screen, to the condition that's included within all recommendations to committee and consent applications. It's condition number 2 that says all costs related to satisfying all conditions are those of the owner, unless otherwise specifically provided. So we try to ensure that this is consistency from the start of a process through to the decision, up to the end of the process, in the sense that the applicant is cognizant of the fact that costs are to be borne by themselves, as opposed to the general levy or general ratepayer. So I think that, in my opinion, Mr. Chair, clarifies some of our discussion, and it furthers our previous discussion at the Committee of Adjustment meeting that brought awareness to the fact that hydrogeological assessments, including the peer review, do get encompassed within that catch-all phrase of cost being borne by applicants. And sometimes they can be expensive, sometimes they can be lengthy, and sometimes they are hard to predict because, as you can imagine, subsurface geology isn't that straightforward. So it's something to be mindful of as committee, but it's not something to drive a decision because we're looking at decisions based on the merits of the application as opposed to the cost of the application. So I think that summarizes it,
Pretty well.
Mr. Chair, but I'm happy to further that if there's anything that you think is more, needs additional explanation.
I just wanted the committee to be aware of what had happened with me being here, sitting in on the meeting. And I felt that at the end of the day, the clarity was first and foremost. And I think that's what has to be done in the future. Like, I still struggle personally with the applicant having to pay for someone to go over what they've already paid a hydro-G study for to be done. We're not asking somebody to correct the MDS or anything else, but that's, council has made the decision and we have to abide by it. Yes, Bob, you had your hand up.
Jason, what would be the cost of a severance for an average lot?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the question of what's the total cost for a severance in total?
Yeah, for 1 acre lot, or 1 hectare.
Yeah, I would say $25,000 approximately. Application fees, survey work, professional representation where needed, lawyers to write new transfers, parkland levies, peer review work, yeah.
As you know, I'm a strong promoter of the Hydro G study to be done with considering the development that is going on and with the water the way it is, so it doesn't affect a neighboring property. And if it does, the study has been done properly. Only my thoughts. Anyone have any concerns or questions? Yes, dear?
Well, my concern with water has been always up front as well. Even back in the days when I used to come to represent clients, the water issues was always used to come up. And I think it is important, you know, with the, as you say, with the development, the intensive development we're having in some areas in this township, that one of these days, all this is going to come back to bite somebody, I'm sure. You know, if we get climate change and we get, you know, really dry well, and I've seen dry, you probably have too, I've seen dry summers where the water trucks are coming and filling up people's wells and things. So it's an important issue that should be taken into good consideration.
I thought the meeting was very well, very educational for everybody concerned. Jason, you were there at the meeting. Do you want to speak to it at all?
No, I think Jason Sands covered the broad strokes of the meeting and the takeaways that we had from it. Thank you.
Okay. Didn't want you to feel as though you were left out. Okay, anyone have any concerns or questions? Change the committee? You okay?
Just a comment again. The fact that back in the old days, we never used to hear severance applications in the winter. Is that the case, Bob? Very rarely. I mean, they weren't done, but these days we're doing them all year round. And for example, the one on White Lake, I mean, you go out there and what can you see? You know, you can't really see it. So, no, I don't know if any of you have used it, but I make extensive use of Google Maps or Google Earth. And this one here on if you look on the Google Maps, Google Earth maps for that property, it shows you a heck of a lot more that you can get by actually driving out there. And that's why I didn't bother driving out. I just opened this up and I can see everything quite clearly. I can see the wetlands, I can see the woods, I can see the hay bales in the field, you know. So it's a tool that I think we should be using, you know, maybe a little more too as well, especially this time of year. It would be quite useful. Don't you agree, Garen?
I agree, it's a powerful tool.
You're in agreement, are you, Aaron? Okay, we have anything for next month, Jason? Owen?
Through Mr. Chair, our next meeting's April 2nd. We have a fairly full agenda. I don't know if numbers of files off the top of my head, but there's probably 6, 7 files, I think, coming forward. So pencil that date, April 2nd. Notices are going out, and we will be back around the table shortly.
Okay. Yes, Marilyn?
Although I have to agree with Dieter, it's very nice not to have to go to those places. And if you can see it all on Google Earth, that's great. But I was just saying, can we see that hydro line that I had a question about? And if you can't see that, then you have to see it to believe it. So my thought is that maybe a little bit of both is useful.
I have to agree with Marilyn, both is beneficial. Really get the lay of the land and what is there, and yeah, Google Earth is okay, but to actually see it in person.
Yeah, and something else too, that you get proper directions, like the one for White Lake, we didn't get anything at all, other than County Road 13. and a fire number. I mean, it's on the application, there is a section there for directions.
Yeah.
That's why Google Earth comes in real handy too. I tend to agree with Bob too. Yeah, maybe both are useful, you know. And you can see hydro lines quite often because the shadow from the hydro pole shows up on the aerial photograph.
Okay, need a motion to close. Moved by Aaron, second by Bob. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much, people.
Don't forget